Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here. Just completed Smallville Season 4. Now, coming off Smallville Season 3, a lot of people weren't very happy with Smallville Season 4. Smallville Season 3 was a very darker season, especially for Lex Luthor and all the stuff in the asylum and his mental health. And people were very excited by Season 3. Now, the thing is with Season 4, it starts off really, really slowly. So we get a really great season premiere because Clark is back after vanishing in the cave walls for 3 months. We're introduced to Lois Lane. It's a beautiful... Listen, the character of Lois Lane is brilliant, but she can be misunderstood. There's a lot of writers and there's a lot of casting producers who seem to think that Lois Lane is a bitch and she always comes across better if she's a bitch. But Alan Miles really got her right. They cast Erica Durance as Lois Lane and she pulls it off. And the way she's written is so remarkably Lois, especially in the car with the cigarette and all, just brilliant. She is the best Lois Lane. There is no question about it. And she earned the right to be kind of a regular from season 8 to season 10. But it was brilliant because you look at the history of Smallville and you see Clark's two most important relationships with females are Lana Lang and Lois Lane. Both are represented in this show and both are represented so remarkably well. So Lois Lane is brilliant. So you've got Clark playing football. It is very slow. It isn't as exciting as people are used to with Smallville. There's a build-up here. The arc of the series are these three elements. What happens is Lana is now studying in France. She meets Jason Teague. He's an older guy. And she finds... She's in this museum and she's doing this kind of scribbling of a kind of an ancient witch. And then something weird happens to her and she gets this tattoo on her back. Of course, this is all linked to these three elements. Now, these three elements were actually hidden by the Kryptonians on Earth for Clark to find. This is the knowledge of the universe. It's only meant for Clark. But because Lana has this kind of tattoo, Clark misunderstands the situation and thinks they're not meant for him. It's all about her because Clark and Lana haven't got much to do with each other. The first core of the season, it's quite interesting and exciting. So it starts to warm up and it becomes a brilliant season. So you've got Genevieve Teague, who is Jason's mother, played by the brilliant Jane Seymour. Absolutely brilliant. Jane really looked like she was enjoying being bad in this series. And, of course, she gets Lionel out of jail because in the previous season he was in prison. With Smallville, there's kind of always continuity errors, which you always forgive them for. So at the beginning of the season, Lex has got this condition after he was poisoned with the whiskey, and he needs kind of some treatment every kind of few hours. But that kind of just vanishes within the season. But I think even if we don't see it, he could still be getting what he needs for that. But this is really the season that Lex starts to become this villain, this Lex Luthor from the comics. And there's a great episode where Clark loses his mind. It's called Blank. He takes advantage of Clark and tries to find out more about what Clark knows about the cave walls. Blank's a brilliant episode. That's one of the highlights of the season. There's another episode, forgot the title. This episode is dedicated to the late, great Christopher Reeve, who, of course, played Superman. Of course, he's the guy who made me fall in love with Superman. And, they're in China, they're looking for the elements, but the whole episode is dedicated to Chris. And you even get kind of a call out to his character in the episode. That's another great episode. So I think as you get to the second half of the season, it begins to get very, very interesting. But one of the core elements, the most important elements of the season, is Chloe finding out Clark's secret. You see, Chloe was always created to be kind of a meta Lois Lane because they couldn't bring Lois into the first part of kind of the show. So they used Chloe as a kind of young Lois Lane. But when Lois comes into it, what do? She can't just be a passionate journalist anymore, or she's echoing Lois Lane's destiny. So what Alan Miles something really clever. They take her on another direction. She discovers Clark's secret. She's the secret keeper. She works with him, in his adventures sometime. And that's just the beginning. And of course, we know in the future she becomes Watchtower and the Justice League rises. And all of this is why it's such a great show. The stuff that happens within this show is amazing. And Clark only puts the costume at the very end. It's an amazing show. Some people call it weird and don't understand how it works, but I do, and I absolutely love it. Now, let's talk about the season 4 finale. The season 4 finale of Smallville has to be one of my favourite 50 minutes of TV I have ever seen. I watched this episode before I saw season 4 in its entirety because I'd seen season 2 and season 3 back to back on DVD. I kind of binged it. And I was very excited, but what happened was I couldn't have access to the DVD. It was on E4. E4 in those days was only on Sky. So E4 had transferred over to Freeview on the finale of season 4. I said, shall I wait to watch the season? I said, no, I have to see it. So I watched the final 2 episodes. So I loved the penultimate episode. And then you got the season 4 episode, the season 4 finale. This is probably the most expensive finale for Smallville they ever did. It was 50 minutes. The VFX must be the best VFX at that time I had ever seen. And it holds up today. It's amazing. And that moment when Clark just appears in the Arctic, me, along with every other Superman fan, knows what's going to happen. The Fortress of Solitude is about to rise. And everything inside of me is shaking and getting exciting. It's amazing. An absolutely phenomenal show. It's a great finale. The second meteor shower. Lois Lane is great in this episode because really Lois Lane from seasons 4 up until 8, she doesn't play a pivotal role, but she's there. She's there. She's got dialogue with Clark. There's lots of foreshadowing. It's beautiful, but she's great. Chloe plays an integral role, and you just see how Lex discovering Lana killing Genevieve, and, kind of saying he's trying to protect her, but he wants the element at the same time. Then he reveals at the end, before she gets on the helicopter, how much he really cares about her. And, of course, more foreshadowing to their relationship in season 6. But it all kicks off in season 5, of course. So, really, the season 4 finale changes everything about Smallville. It makes it a more adult show. In the penultimate episode, they finish high school. They're going to go to college. It's very exciting when you finish that finale and think, in the next episode, is the Fortress of Solitude actually going to rise? It has to. There's no way back from this. And credit to Alan Miles. They rose the Fortress of Solitude in the end of in the season 5 premiere. And you just think, what does this mean? Does this mean season 5's the final season? Does he finally become Superman in season 5? Of course not. It didn't happen. And Superman Returns was about to be released when season 5 was airing as well. So you didn't know maybe Warner Brothers wanted to, wrap up Smallville so it didn't mess about with the kind of film franchise they wanted to do. And I kind of suspect with Superman Returns not working out and them not deciding not to give Singer a sequel, maybe they thought Smallville needs to stay. Superman needed his representation. And I think that Smallville is probably one of the best live-action versions of Superman. I think it's equal as good as what Donna did with Superman the movie. It's for TV, it's amazing. And this season 4 finale is so epic, so emotional. I dare you to find an episode of Arrowverse that gives you that type of emotion. It's absolutely brilliant, and it sets up season 5 so beautifully well. I'm always going to be obsessed with Smallville. I'm always going to be in love with Smallville because it gave me a dose of Superman I desperately needed.